The last few years, in terms of social media for business, we saw people starting to use their personal profiles and starting to do pilots in their businesses. And then in 2012, everyone is anticipating across multiple industries that we're going to graduate from those pilots into full deployments. And so at Hearsay Social, we say that 2012 is a year of social media ROI for businesses.
That's great. So now Hearsay Social just launched February of 2011.
That's right.
That's amazing. So, you know, we have a lot of people in the audience here who manage an office, they manage a brokerage, they manage a team, and much of what Hearsay Social does is they put the control of the social media messaging back in the hands of the people responsible for managing the brand. So for real estate, can you give kind of some tips about how to best administer control and messaging?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to social media, first and foremost, it's important to be authentic. And that best happens at the agent level in our experience. But you know, there's incredible power in taking a brand at the highest level, the national or global level, and helping instill that brand and make sure that those guidelines are met at every level of the organization. And so I'll just speak from some of our experience. I mean, Hearsay, we got our start in the insurance business. So we work with some of the largest insurance companies in the country. State Farm, Farmers, any number of them that you might think of, they probably work with us. And what we've done is we've let corporate take the best of their digital marketing assets, whether it's a viral video that they develop on YouTube, or it's a campaign on how to save for your retirement, how to plan for the future, how to invest in home improvement. And then we let them add that content to a content library that the local agents then have access to. They can pick and choose what they think will resonate with their clients and prospects, and then be able to post and schedule and track all of that content from within Hearsay Social. Just really be able to add their own voice, even though it's corporate created content.
Wow, so it's corporate created, but then the individual agents can go in and pick the different content that they would like to post to their social media channels.
And we think that, you know, just from the early results we've seen, that it's a great way of being able to tap into the best of both worlds. You let corporate do what they do best, but you still retain that authentic element of the agent voice.
Right, and I think that's, you know, really interesting because there's a lot of broker owners in the room here who struggle with that. You know, they have their large broker brand or their franchise brand, but then obviously every agent is a, you know, independent contractor. So how do you manage that and manage that brand? Can you tell me a little bit about the difference that it's made, like for specifically Farmers Insurance? What kind of, you know, result have they seen from that? Can you share any statistics or anything?
Absolutely. Farmers Insurance approached us about a year and a half ago, and they said, look, our agents are independently owned and operated agency owners, and so they can say whatever they want, but they need help. A lot of them are very busy, day-to-day, selling, having face-to-face meetings. They're operationally focused or sales focused. They're not generally marketing experts. And so the corporate marketing team at Farmers said, well, how can we help them? And they worked with a number of digital agency partners as well as their own in-house resources to develop these videos, develop these campaigns. And they said, well, we'll create these as options for the agents. And so what we saw was really transformative. So the agents' Facebook pages and LinkedIn profiles and Twitter pages went from being very inconsistent ghost towns into vibrant communities, because now they didn't have to worry about what to say. They could come up with their own content if there was something specific to their local communities, but during times when they didn't have that content, they could also rely on this library. And they could see what their peers were posting across the country and what was resonating with those audiences, and use that crowdsourced information to be smarter about what they were posting to their own.
And I bet Farmers was happy.
They were absolutely thrilled, because I mean, it's all about mind share at the agent relationship level, but also building mind share for the brand.
Right.
And so I think, you know, is really the best of both worlds.
That's great. So did they see any big jump in their website traffic, or a number of agents embracing social media more?
It was incredible. So Farmers Insurance grew their agent base on Facebook from 50 agents to over 4,500 agents.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. And State Farm now has over 9,500 agents on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, all through Hearsay Social. And so, you know, when I think about the role that we play, yes, we're primarily a software company, technology company, But a lot of the difficulty is in the change management and in the training and onboarding of agents who have varying levels of social media and technology expertise. And so that's something that we believe strongly in, and we like to partner with franchises who have the same philosophy that we do and are willing to invest in onboarding, and the returns are enormous. I mean, initially, you like to typically will work with franchises to track social media metrics like agent adoption, number of fans, number of followers, likes, retweets, shares. But recently, we've moved on beyond these primary metrics to actually tie social media activity back to sales. And we're finding incredible results that, in fact, the clients that engage with their agents on social media are the ones who renew, who buy more policies, who refer their friends. And I suspect the same would be true in the real estate industry.
Absolutely. So there's ROI in social media?
Absolutely.
Definitely. So you heard it right there. So now Hearsay Social was also one of the first companies to integrate the Google Plus API into their platform. That must have been exciting.
That's right. I mean, especially as a former Google employee, I was thrilled that Hearsay Social was one of just 5 launch partners for Google Plus brand pages a few months ago, and we remain the only one that can support this corporate to local national franchise model.
So is Google Plus going to be a major player in 2012?
I think so. We're already seeing a lot of adoption there, and it grows in different pockets. The thing about a new social network is that you can't just offer the same functionality as the incumbents, or else there's no reason for people to switch. You have to offer something really net new in terms of a functionality that they couldn't access before. And what Google has that no one else has is search and maps. I mean, think about the relevance of maps and location to this business. And so as they're able to integrate those applications into Google Plus, I think it'll become much more compelling.
Absolutely. So just to switch back to Facebook a minute, you know, people spend 22 billion minutes a day on Facebook, and you wrote the highly acclaimed book, The Facebook Era. I've heard you've talked about how Facebook is sort of changing the norms and the expectations of everyone. Can you talk a little bit about that cultural movement that you see happening?
Absolutely. So it's one of my favorite topics to discuss because initially when I set out to write my book, I thought I would focus on the technology and the business. But really the book became as much equally about sociology, of human behavior. And what I realized was that Facebook and other social networks like it, they're changing how we share information and thereby what we expect other people will share with us. And so there's fascinating research going on in the sociology department in Harvard Business School about this, where my book is being used as a textbook. And they're finding that because of social networks, relationships are accelerating. So sooner after you meet someone, people are deciding whether they want to keep this person in their life, whether they want to date them, whether they want to hire them, whether they want them to be their realtor. Because instead of having to wait until interview number 6 or meeting number 7, all this information that you previously had to wait to ask and find out is now readily available on a social network. And so from a real estate perspective, I mean, making sure that agents are educated on this and thinking about their profiles and business pages as their personal brand and how they really want to portray themselves, and also thinking about the separation between personal and professional.
So what's your opinion about that, about personal and professional? You know, sometimes there's especially in real estate, it's such a personal business. And do you have any preference over separating the two, you know, or do they cross over? How do you feel about that?
I think there's incredible crossover. And I mean, if you ask Mark Zuckerberg, he thinks that everyone should just have a single identity. For some of us in certain careers, that's just not realistic. I'll just share my own story. I mean, I have over 5,000 friends on Facebook. Everybody wants to be my friend because they read my book and they add me. And I want them to have that opportunity. And I think it's important to share who I am and my personality with my readers and with my customers and prospects. But there are certain things that are just too personal to share, like my pictures from the holidays of my nieces and nephews. I don't want everyone in the world to see that. And so one thing that I always encourage people to do, especially in a professional context, is to make use of friend lists on Facebook. You can actually segment your friends and your contacts, just like a marketer segments their audience. And for each piece of information you share, whether it's a photograph or it's your phone number or it's a post, a snarky reply, you can decide which groups of friends you want to share that with. Google Plus has a similar concept with their circles metaphor, where you can group different contacts into different circles.
Right, that makes a big difference. So you're just focused on, talking who you really want to talk to
Exactly.
versus sometimes the mass.
Yeah, and I know some people have, dozens of friend lists. Mine are very simple. I have, my business colleagues, I have my family, and then I have my friends, and then I have readers of my book that I haven't met.
Right. You talk a lot about the social graph, and just for those of you who don't know, that term gets thrown around a whole lot. What is the social graph?
Yeah, it's a fancy Silicon Valley term, but it's really very simple. Social graph is simply a map of every internet user and how they're connected to each other. So initially it started off with just friends. So who's your friend list? How does that connect to Katie's friend list, connect to Tim's friend list? But as Facebook has gotten more nuanced and you have more businesses joining, realtors joining, brands joining, organizations, political campaigns. Now the social graph has expanded to include not only people, but also businesses, brands, organizations, and causes. And it's just a term to understand that there's this layer of information now, of relationship information that's available and that sits on top of the entire internet.
So where does that matter, you think, in business and as a real estate agent? I mean, why do you think that's so important for people to pay attention to?
Well, I mean, in our industry, actually in every industry, about once a decade we see a sweeping technology change come through that changes the way that we communicate with our clients and our prospects. And in the 70s it was mainframe computing, in the 80s it was a personal computer, the idea that everyone could have their own machine, their own PC. Now we have 3 or 4, I see all these iPads and iPhones and MacBooks out there. Last decade it was the internet, and it was the World Wide Web of information. And at the time I know people, certainly in some of the industries we work with in insurance and banking, they didn't know whether they should give internet access or an email account or have a web page for all of their insurance agents and their financial advisors. Well, can you imagine today, in retrospect, not doing that? So the same thing is happening with social web. Last decade was a World Wide Web of information. It was information that was at a premium. This decade, it's a World Wide Web of relationships. And those of us who can master these new tools and build bigger networks, well, the idea is that the bigger network that you have, the larger marketing funnel, and given the same conversion rate, the more business you'll close as an agent. And so those of us a decade ago who knew how to Google search and find information quickly, that was rewarded. And this decade, those of us who can maintain larger networks of high quality relationships, that's rewarded.
That's great. I love that, the World Wide Web of relationships.
Yes.
You're tweeting, tweet that. So something I've heard you say, you've talked a lot about with Facebook and Twitter and some of these social networks, Google Plus now, people on the fringe. So can you tell the audience what you mean by that? Because I think there's a great analogy in there of what that means and how that can relate to the impact your social networks have on you and your business.
Absolutely. I mean, fringe relationships and weak ties is not a new sociology concept. It's just basically that people that we don't talk to and interact with on a daily basis, or who aren't part of our inner circle, but whom we'd still consider a contact. So often it's people that we grew up with but who moved away, or who we used to go to college with, or who used to be a coworker, but maybe now we live in different cities or we're busy with our own kids and families. And there's been a lot of research in the sociology field with regard to the value of weak ties. And it turns out that, given how mobile Americans are, moving from city to city, given the transience of jobs these days, people switching from one company to another, weak ties are really important. And even in a personal manner, in terms of finding your future husband or wife. I mean, sometimes it's people who you barely know. It's an acquaintance who you end up meeting, or who introduces you to someone who becomes very important in your life. And so the interesting research has been tying the study of weak ties to social networking. Because it's so efficient now and the cost of staying in touch is a lot lower on Facebook, people are staying in touch with more people, right? Because you could be Facebook friends with far more people than you can email or call or visit in person with on any regular basis. And so the hypothesis goes that people who leverage these social networks can have bigger networks maintained over time, and that bigger networks is how you maximize your weak ties and your social capital. And so in times of need, when you're looking to hire someone, or you're looking for a job, or you're looking to get married, you have more people to call on for help.
Right.